So if you feel trapped by your current job or your financial situation, if you feel called to financial freedom, but it kind of feels out of reach, this episode is for you. I'm going to show you 3 simple, very, very simple steps that took me from struggle and scarcity into a life of financial freedom where I can focus on my family, my purpose, generosity, and multiplication of what God has given me. I'm Judson Morgan, and 10 years ago, I was in the same spot where I was struggling. Lots of ideas, but lots of fear. It was only when I discovered these 3 simple steps that I was able to build a life of financial freedom, a life where I'm not tied down to a schedule that someone else makes, and I'm free to be generous with my kids and my time and my church and my wife, and I'm free to continue to multiply all that God has given me. By the end of this video, you'll have a super simple path to the financial freedom God has for you. So let's get into it. Step one is accept the fact that it's time to focus on money. I know it sounds blasphemous. I've recently realized that what's missing in many Christians' lives is what I'm calling the money season. There is a season for everything in life, a season to learn, to give, to pray, etc. We understand those seasons, but we never give ourselves the permission to have a money season. And maybe that's what's keeping you stuck. When I was living in New York and LA, trying to be an actor and then trying to be a filmmaker, but really I was wondering if I should get a job at Starbucks, my issue wasn't, talent or strategy or I wasn't lazy. It was the simple fact that I wasn't focused on money. I was trying to do things I wanted to do and hoped the money would just follow, but it didn't. It took this massive crisis in my life that I talked about before to wake me up, to help me to wake up to focus on money itself. I think many of you are like me. You wonder why money is such a struggle, but you never actually put your attention on it. You hope and you pray that it'll come while you do what you want to do and you think God is calling you to do. In some cases that happens, but most of the time, we see this throughout the Bible, it takes focus on provision and financial wisdom in order to get financial freedom. It takes that focusing on it. I know it sounds crazy for a Christian who loves Jesus to focus on money, which is why this is step number 1. The church has done many of us a disservice by making the simple pursuit of financial stability and financial wisdom sound like we're immediately in the category of the rich young ruler. But focusing on money does not mean you're going to put making money over God and you're going to store up treasures on earth instantly. You're simply going to admit to yourself that something is keeping you stuck. You're going to admit to yourself that the world we live in is largely influenced by money. Money plays a part in every second of every day. And it's time to solve the problem of money in your life. That's it. We all know money is used for evil. Money can corrupt people, but so can leadership, power, sex, food. Money is tempting, and money can be an idol, but so can all these other good things in the world. So put money in its rightful place. Money isn't the goal. Riches are not the end game, but it is a massively important part of modern life. It's just dumb to act like that's not true. And it's a huge part of the life of freedom. So that's step 1. Fully embrace that this is your money season, that you need to make a season for money. The faster and more fully that you can solve the money problem in your life, the faster and more fully you can have the freedom to generously live the rest of your days. If you struggle with this mindset shift, I get it. If you are holding on to patterns of scarcity, I get it. It's embarrassing to admit how long I was there. And this is why I'm so passionate about helping you get unstuck. There's a link below this episode where you can book a call with me where I will work with you one-on-one to help you walk into financial freedom and the abundant life, which leads us to step 2. You need a vision. Without vision, the people perish, it says in Proverbs 29:18. Think about it. Without a destination, you're going to wander forever. If you have vague desires and vague goals, what you're going to get are vague results. As Seneca said, to the person who does not know where he wants to go, there is no favorable wind. If you don't know where you're going, there's no way to find the path to get there. But on the other hand, if you have a compelling desire, if you are aligned with God's mission and calling on your life, what is going to stop you? A compelling desire does just what it says. It compels you. You see, the secret is to set your life up in such a way that you are compelled to do the things that will get you where you want to go. That's the idea behind habit stacking, or behind the book Willpower Doesn't Work. A compelling vision, a why, is the thing that draws the greatness out of you. It compels it out of you. It's not your willpower. It's the goals that are compelling you forward, pulling you forward. There have been a few times in my life where God has given me specific, clear direction. Go here, do this, that kind of thing. As you know, if you follow the download, God straight up told me to learn to provide for my family. But most of the time, that's not how it works. Most of the time, he allows us to fumble around, struggle, and make choices and set goals. This is the world he created, one where we have free will. He doesn't always just tell us exactly what to do. We agree that the God of the universe, the one who created all this, could drop a pile of cash at your doorstep, right? He could give you instant success. Doesn't he promise to give his children all good things? From Psalm 84:11, no good thing does he withhold from those who walk uprightly. So why doesn't he do it that way most of the time? Why does he allow us to struggle and work and toil and fail and pivot and wander? Deuteronomy 8:2-3 says, remember how the Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness these 40 years to humble you and test you in order to know what was in your heart. He humbled you, causing you to hunger, and then feed you with manna to teach you that God does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. See, God withholds the shortcut because he's forming the person. This is why without vision, without the goal, we perish. Life will bring its pain and struggle. So we need a compelling vision to pull us through when the inevitable happens. If you struggle with aligning with God, hearing his leading and calling in your life, I'd be honored to come alongside you and help you find where your gifting and calling might be leading you. Link is below the episode on YouTube to grab a time with me. Okay, so that's step 2. Now, the final step is to take massive, imperfect action. Okay? The examples are all over the Bible where people took decisive action towards God's calling and purposes. There are examples all over the Bible of when God's people took decisive, imperfect action toward God's calling and purposes. Think about, the disciples. They were fishermen. Jesus approached them and said, hey, I want to teach you to be fishers of men. And they immediately dropped their nets, it says, and followed him. They didn't think about it. They didn't plan. They dropped their nets right there and followed. Think about Peter when he saw Jesus on the shore after the resurrection. He doesn't tell the guys to turn the boat around and head back. He immediately just throws himself into the water and swims to Jesus. I mean, that is taking massive action. Think about David offering to fight Goliath. He didn't have to take such a huge risk. He could have let this situation just play out. He was just a young guy after all, but he knew God's calling on his life. So he had the courage to take massive action in a situation that seemed impossible. He literally had to fight a giant. He had to convince King Saul, who obviously thought this was a terrible idea. He was like, who is this kid? He had to convince him that he could win. David knew how God had prepared him. He knew the call on his life. So he took massive action against massive resistance. This is often the path. I cannot overstate how important it is to take action. If there is one secret to my journey from struggle, lack, and life without financial freedom, without time freedom, it's this: imperfect action. As James Clear said, action is the antidote to fear. As Naval Ravikant said, all of the really successful people I know have a really strong action bias. They just do things. So I was thinking about the fact that the one career that I studied for, so I spent 4 years in college studying and then 3 years to get my MFA. So that's 7 years. That was 7 years working toward this one career, toward this one path for my success, one path for my finances. That is the career that failed. It didn't work. I prepared for 7 years. I tried for 10 years after school to make this thing work, but it didn't happen. Then on a gut instinct and a whim, I tried selling an e-commerce product on Amazon.com. I knew nothing about e-commerce. I'd never studied it. I'd never prepared for it. I never made a business plan. I didn't understand marketing. I had never studied business. But that is the thing that turned into a company doing $20 million a year in revenue. See, it wasn't preparation. It wasn't getting an MFA. It wasn't a genius idea I had. It wasn't proprietary knowledge. It was literally just one thing. I took imperfect action over and over and over. A lot of my coaching calls recently have included a large dose of me saying, in all kinds of different ways, you have permission to go for it. So many of us are stuck trying to figure out what to do, what the next step is. And we lock ourselves up. Often the fastest way to know if an idea will work is to try it. That's still what I do. That's still what I'm doing today. I ask myself, what is the easiest and quickest way for me to test this idea? For example, just last week, I was kind of stuck with this podcast, the download. I wasn't sure which direction to go. I want to help as many people as I possibly can with the challenges they face with their finances and living the abundant life. And I want to do it how I am uniquely positioned to solve and to help. So I debated with myself and I researched and I felt just confused. And then the light bulb went off. What if I just asked you guys? So I took this little imperfect action. Instead of floundering in the desert of confusion, I put out a poll and asked you guys. I took the simple action of asking, what do you want? What do you guys think would be the most valuable? That's it. Speaking of, many of you answered that poll and said that you'd love to hear from me about what the Bible actually says about money, right? So much confusing information. What does the Bible actually teach? And the other half of you said you wanted to hear about how to start a business or side hustle and move into a life of financial freedom and abundance, which is why I'm making this episode and this series on financial freedom. If you didn't see the poll, I'll link it below, but you can also give me your 2 cents in the comments below this video. While you're at it, you might as well subscribe to the show because, it helps the algorithm and I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, let me leave you with this quote from Judson Taylor, one of the greatest missionaries of all time. God's work done in God's way will never lack God's supply. Man, that's good, right? This is our goal. God's work done God's way. This will lead to the abundant life we are promised in John 10:10. When we seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, all the rest will be given. And if you want to hear more about the permission to prosper in God's economy, check out this episode on the 6 wealth secrets I learned on my way to financial freedom. Thank you for joining me today, and that's the pod.